So I want you to imagine you are walking into a war room. The heavy doors lock behind you. The noise of the outside world just abruptly cuts out. And right in front of you is this sprawling, illuminated topographical map of Jammu and Kashmir.
Right. It's a completely different atmosphere.
Exactly. You've got red markers indicating recent terror activity and these blue lines tracing the incredibly complex movement of multi-agency security forces. Because you are not here for just a casual overview today. You're here for a strategic briefing.
Yeah, we are treating this as an absolute deep dive into the real tactical mechanics.
Right. To understand how the state actually dismantles a complex security threat, we are pulling from a fascinating stack of sources today. We've got, recent defense and tactical briefings, topographical analyses of the region, and the post-operation intelligence summaries.
And the goal here is exam-ready analysis, right? You need to know how to structure this on paper.
Yes, exactly. We are going to dissect a specific operation from July 28, 2025. It serves as this absolute masterclass in intelligence-led counterterrorism. So let's unpack Operation Mahadev.
When you look through these tactical reports, what stands out immediately is that this wasn't just a standard patrol that happened to stumble into an encounter.
No, not at all.
Operation Mahadev is really the gold standard for what analysts call multi-agency synergy. It took place on the very outskirts of Jammu and Kashmir's capital, Srinagar, and the structural challenge presented in these documents is severe. I mean, how does a state handle a highly armed threat that is operating in a dense forest, but geographically sitting right on the edge of a major civilian metropolis?
Right, and to give you a mental model for how the government tackled this, I want you to think of the joint forces in this operation like a meticulously synchronized net.
Oh, that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, so you have the local police providing the incredibly fragile thread of human intelligence. Then you have the specialized military forces attempting to pull that net tight. But that is a notoriously delicate process.
Very delicate, because if the military forces pull too hard or act too quickly, that local intelligence thread just snaps, or, different agencies end up tripping over each other's jurisdictions.
Right, which we've seen happen in the past.
Exactly. That friction between agencies is historically one of the biggest hurdles in counterterrorism, because police units operate with a law enforcement mindset, focusing on evidence, civilian safety, that sort of thing, while military special forces operate with a search and neutralize doctrine.
Completely different operating systems.
Right. So bridging that gap requires a highly specific catalyst. You do not mobilize a joint force of the magnitude seen in Operation Mahadev without absolute ironclad certainty.
And the sources identify that catalyst clearly. It was the Pahalgam terror attack.
Yes, the intelligence trigger.
Right. The defense briefings note that intelligence networks picked up credible information linking militants from that specific Pahalgam incident to a brand new hideout. But they didn't flee to, a remote, isolated village near the border.
No, they did something much more calculated.
They moved to the dense forests of Dashgam National Park and the adjoining Dara area.
And Dachigan National Park presents just a formidable structural challenge. I mean, we are talking about 141 square kilometers of protected ecological zone right in the Zabarwan range.
The terrain is brutal.
It is. It's incredibly steep, the undergrowth is thick, and the forest canopy is so dense in certain areas that it renders standard aerial drone surveillance virtually useless.
Wait, I have to push back here, though. If the terrain in Dachigam is that incredibly rugged and unforgiving, aren't the terrorists just trapping themselves?
How do you mean?
How do they maintain a supply line or get food or coordinate logistics if they are stuck in an isolated, near impenetrable forest? I mean, why choose a national park instead of blending into a sympathetic border village?
That is the core of the issue. It's because of its proximity to the city. Dashigam is only about 20 kilometers from Srinagar.
Oh, wow. Just 20 kilometers.
Exactly. The militants are exploiting what security analysts call a structural vulnerability of the urban forest periphery.
So they aren't isolated at all.
Not at all. They are not trapped. They are utilizing the dense canopy of the national park to hide from military technology, while staying close enough to the urban center of Srinagar to utilize pre-existing logistical support networks.
Best of both worlds for them, basically.
Right. They get the camouflage of the deep wilderness, but they remain essentially within striking distance of the capital. So the structural problem the government is attempting to solve with Operation Mahadev is denying terrorists this exact type of safe haven.
Because if they stay there, it's a massive threat.
Exactly. If a staging ground is allowed to exist just 20 kilometers from Srinagar, the entire urban security grid is fundamentally compromised.
Okay, so let's map out the specific data points from the topographical and tactical reports. Grab a pen, because you need to have a firm anchor for how this unfolded.
These are your memory anchors for the exam.
Right. The operation peaked on July 28, 2025.
July 28, 2025.
The specific location was the Lidwaz area near Harwan, which sits right on that abrupt geographical transition where the urban sprawl of Srinagar meets the foothills of Dachigam.
And the target result.
The tactical result was the neutralization of 3 Pakistani terrorists.
Perfect. And, the nomenclature used in the defense briefings, Operation Mahadev, that also provides a really fascinating geographic and cultural anchor.
I noticed that in the reports. Military operations usually have highly deliberate naming conventions. Is this just a reference to the specific terrain?
It operates on 2 levels, actually. So Mahadev directly references the intensely rugged Mahadev Peak. It's the highest peak in the Zavarwan range, and it visually dominates the skyline right where the operation took place.
So it's geographically literal.
Right. It grounds the military action in the physical reality of that punishing mountainous landscape. But it also carries deep spiritual significance in Kashmir.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, so acknowledging the intent behind the operation's name gives you a much more nuanced understanding of how the security apparatus views its role in protecting the broader cultural and geographic region.
Okay, so we have the geographic context, the timeline, and the target. Now we really need to look at the mechanisms.
The how.
Exactly. How did they actually pull the net tight without snapping the thread? The defense briefings highlight this concept called jointmanship.
Yes, a crucial administrative keyword.
When we see that term, it usually refers to institutional synergy at a high level. But I want to break down what that actually looked like on the ground in the Lidwaz area.
Well, Operation Mahadev is an exceptional case study in jointmanship because you literally have 4 distinct agencies, each with different command structures and mandates, operating as a single cohesive organism.
Let me list the personnel so you can note them down. The reports list the Indian Army's Chinar Corps specifically, the 24 Rashtriya Rifles, and the 4 PRA Special Forces.
Right, that's the military component.
Then you have the Central Reserve Police Force, the CRPF, and finally the Special Operations Group, or SOG, of the Jammu and Kashmir Police. 4 separate entities entering a dense forest.
Consider the absolute logistical nightmare of coordinating that in a low-visibility environment. You have to assign highly specialized roles.
So how did they divide it up?
Well, the SOG of the local police is your sensory organ. They bring the localized human intelligence. They know the terrain, the local dialects, and the subtle shifts in the environment.
They're the thread.
Exactly. Then, the 24 Rashtriya Rifles brings decades of sustained counterinsurgency experience. They know how to establish a wide, impenetrable grid in mountainous terrain so nobody slips out.
Which leaves the 4 PRA Special Forces and the CRPF.
Right. The 4 PRA Special Forces are brought in for one very specific reason: surgical, high-intensity, close-quarters combat.
Because of the dense brush?
Yes. When you are moving through a forest where a threat could be like 2 meters away and entirely invisible, you need specialized operatives trained for that exact microenvironment.
And the CRPF.
Meanwhile, the CRPF provides the essential perimeter lockdown. They ensure that while the military is operating in the forest, the civilian areas surrounding Harwan and Srinagar are completely secured.
Preventing any spillover of violence.
Exactly, preventing it from reaching the urban center.
So the tactical timeline paints a very tense picture of how these roles interacted. The forces were positioned in these heavily forested zones early in the morning, and around 11 a.m. on July 28th, they finally established contact with the targets.
Right, at the hideout.
Yeah, the post-op summaries describe a heavily camouflaged hideout. What does establishing contact actually look like in that specific scenario?
It is incredibly chaotic. I mean, at 11 a.m. in the dense undergrowth of Dachigam, shadows are deep, the foliage distorts sound, it's disorienting.
And they're trying to be quiet.
Right. The forces are likely moving with extreme stealth, navigating terrain that actively works against them. Snapping twigs, loose rocks. Establishing contact usually means the exact moment the camouflage is breached.
Which means immediate action.
Exactly, resulting in an immediate, zero-warning exchange of fire.
The reports refer to this as a kinetic operation. And just for clarity, when defense analysts use the word kinetic, we are talking about active live-fire combat as opposed to, a surveillance or intelligence gathering mission.
Yes, exactly.
Oh.
The moment contact was established at 11 a.m., It transitioned instantly into a kinetic environment.
In that heavy camouflage.
Right, so in a heavily camouflaged setting, the ability to instantly distinguish hostile targets from the dense surrounding foliage, coordinate fire among 4 different agencies without friendly fire incidents, and neutralize the threat, it requires a staggering level of discipline.
And it resulted in a swift, intense firefight. All 3 terrorists were neutralized.
Oh.
But the intelligence summaries released after the firefight reveal the true national security implications of this operation. Because this was not just a disruption of low-level foot soldiers or local recruits.
Not at all.
The security forces successfully neutralized high-value, cross-border elements. Specifically, they identified one of the neutralized terrorists as a man named Gibran.
And identifying Gibran shifts this entire event from a successful tactical encounter to a major strategic victory.
Absolutely. Gibran was an operative for Lashkar-e-Taiba, or Lati, but the detail in the intelligence briefing that really stands out to me is his history. He was previously involved in the Sonamarg tunnel attack.
Right, which took place back in October 2023.
Yes. So the timeline there is crucial for your analysis.
It really is. I mean, think about it. What does it signal when the state's security apparatus neutralizes an operative in July 2025 for an infrastructure attack that took place nearly 2 years earlier in October 2023?
It signals that the state has an incredibly long memory.
Exactly.
And that the intelligence files on these operatives are never truly closed.
It demonstrates a policy of sustained, relentless pressure. The Sonamarg Tunnel is a critical piece of economic and logistical infrastructure.
Very critical for the region.
So by tracking down an operative involved in attacking that infrastructure 2 years later, the state is proving that cross-border operatives cannot simply slip into the forest and wait out the heat.
The intelligence network will eventually catch up.
Always.
But, the defense analyses also highlight some very realistic limitations and challenges associated with an operation like this. It is really important to balance the tactical success with the inherent risks when you're writing this out.
Oh, absolutely. Critical evaluation is key.
First, the terrain challenge we discussed. Operating in a national park means the environment dictates the rules of engagement. You cannot easily call in heavy air support without causing massive ecological damage or risking, uncontained fires.
The margin for error is effectively zero.
And second, the urban proximity risk. Conducting a kinetic operation, firing automatic weapons, utilizing special forces, just 20 kilometers from a major civilian hub like Srinagar is an immense risk.
It's a nightmare scenario if it goes wrong.
Right. If the outer perimeter held by the CRPF fails, or if the militants manage to break the net and flee toward the city, you suddenly have an active combat situation spilling into civilian neighborhoods.
Which perfectly reinforces why that interagency jointmanship we talked about is non-negotiable. If the military and police are not communicating perfectly, the urban forest periphery becomes a liability rather than a buffer zone.
Exactly. Now, the strategic policy documents we are reviewing frame Operation Mahadev not as an isolated gunfight in the woods, but as an indicator of broader governance patterns. This is your interlinking engine.
Right. You always have to connect the tactical event to the broader national policy.
So how does it connect?
It illustrates the practical application of zero tolerance for terrorism policy. When you see terms like strategic autonomy in these documents, this is what it actually looks like on the ground.
It's securing the nation from within.
Yes. By taking out a high-value Lati target like Gibran, the state is actively neutralizing supply chain vulnerabilities in cross-border terror logistics. They are severing the cord that connects the border infiltrators to the urban logistical networks.
Okay, so let's shift gears to the answer writing conversion. If a defense analyst or, a listener prepping for an exam only had 60 seconds to understand the absolute core of Operation Mahadev, how do they structure a 150-word answer?
Okay, so they need to structure their understanding around an intro, 3 distinct body pillars, and a way ahead.
Okay, walk us through it.
Your intro simply defines Op Mahadev in July 2025 as the pinnacle of multi-agency counterterrorism. Then you hit Pillar 1, intelligence-led precision. The entire operation rests on the initial, credible intelligence linking the Pahalgam attack to the new hideout.
Without that, there is no operation.
Exactly. Pillar 2 is interagency jointmanship. You have to recognize the specific integration of the Rashtriya Rifles, the PRA Special Forces, the CRPF, and the SOG. It is the combination of military force and local law enforcement that makes success possible.
And the third body argument.
Pillar 3 is the elimination of persistent threats. Neutralizing a Lashkar-e-Taiba operative linked to the 2023 Sonamarg attack proves the long-term efficacy of the intelligence grid.
And what's the way ahead?
The way ahead, based on these sources, is the necessity of continued intelligence dominance in these vulnerable urban forest peripheries. You cannot simply secure the city streets. You must secure the wild transition zones like Dashigam.
That's a perfect structure. And throughout this briefing, we've used specific terminology. Make sure you underline these keywords: interagency synergy, heavily camouflaged terrain, intelligence-based surgical operation, and cross-border terrorism.
Right, using those terms means you are speaking the actual language of strategic analysis rather than just, reading a news headline.
Exactly. Understanding the vocabulary allows you to diagnose the operational mechanics. You see the gears turning beneath the surface.
Exactly.
Okay, let's do a final revision capsule to lock in the key takeaways from all the documents we've reviewed today. Just rapid fire. What are the 5 must-remember facts from this operation?
Okay, grab your notes. Number 1, date, July 28, 2025. Number 2, location, Lidwas area near Harwan, outskirts of Srinagar.
Got it.
Number 3, forces involved, 24 Rashtriya Rifles, 4 PRA Special Forces, CRPF, and J&K Police SOG.
Number 4.
Result, 3 Pakistani terrorists killed. And number 5, high-value target, Gibran, and lead-free operative linked to the 2023 Sonamarg attack.
Perfect. And here's one probable exam question to test yourself on. Evaluate the role of interagency coordination in mitigating cross-border terrorism with reference to recent security operations in Jammu and Kashmir.
That's a great prompt, and your 5 analytical keywords to use in that answer are jointmanship, counterterrorism, urban forest periphery, intelligence-led, and Lashkar-e-Taiba.
Can you give us a final 30-second summary to wrap it all up?
Sure. The central narrative is how the Indian security apparatus leveraged seamless military-police coordination to neutralize 3 Pakistani Lashkar-e-Taiba operatives. By successfully navigating the dense, urban-adjacent terrain of Dachigam National Park, the state effectively closed the loop on both the recent Pahalgam intelligence and the 2023 Sonamarg terror incidents.
It really is a definitive case study in how interagency coordination mitigates cross-border terrorism. We've mapped the intelligence thread, the tactical execution of the special forces, and the broader strategic takeaways regarding national security.
We covered a lot of ground today.
We did. But before we leave the war room today, there is a lingering theme in these topographical reports that warrants some deeper thought for you to mull over on your own.
The ecology angle.
Right. We discussed the dense canopy and the rugged nature of Dachigam National Park. It is a protected ecological zone, home to endangered species like the Hangul deer. So when terrorists actively utilize these environmentally sensitive areas as camouflaged hideouts, how must security forces balance the need for an overwhelming immediate tactical response with the strict, unavoidable constraints of operating in a fragile ecological terrain?
That's a massive challenge.
It really is. Think about the tension between preserving a national park and neutralizing a national security threat. Until next time.